Well, let's see. So I hear Laura Esserman is on now. I think we still are waiting for Kim Rhodes, but we could probably get started since
I think
know
Kim
we've
said
got-
she might not be able to make it, so.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we'll go ahead and get started. So just again, welcome everyone. We are so excited to have our now second Wisdom Community Forum. Our last one was in December, and we are planning to do this every month at the last Monday of every month. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will go ahead and get started. It's so nice to see a lot of familiar names, but also many new names as well. We hope everyone will continue to join us in the conversation, both today and also on an ongoing basis.
Great, I see I was wrong. I just saw Kim joined.
Okay.
Great. So
All
I
right,
wanted to, yeah, so I just wanted to see, maybe hear from people what sort of brought everybody to join the forum today. And, our mission here is to move together towards equity and better outcomes in breast cancer for everyone, and to do a better job around how we screen and prevent breast cancer. So we're really interested in having an ongoing dialogue and discussion with everyone, and people can speak up, and or they can put in the chat what it was that maybe just do a quick minute to just very quickly have everyone introduce themselves. I think that would be helpful. Maybe we can, let me just see if we can just maybe go through. There's not so many people that we couldn't do it really quickly. Just maybe kind of go quickly and just say one word about who you are and where you're from, and what your favorite color is. Okay, Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison Fiscalini. I'm the director of the Athena Breast Health Network and the Wisdom Study, and my favorite color is blue.
Marianne.
Hi, Marian Harris, Bay Area. My favorite color is purple.
Kim.
I'm Kim Rhodes, Associate Director for Community Engagement at the Cancer Center, and my favorite color is also purple, Marianne.
Well, okay, you guys, I'm the complimentary color. My favorite color is yellow. Okay, Carol.
Yeah, Carol Ziegler.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, Carol Ziegler. I'm in the Wisdom Study, have been for a few years, and my favorite color is yellow.
Great. Okay, Heather.
Hi, I was in the Wisdom Study and I'm a Wisdom Ambassador. Favorite color is purple. I'm here in the Bay Area.
Lots of complimentary colors here today. Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Fernandez. I'm in media relations and I work on that behalf for Dr. Esserman, and I'm in the blue camp.
Okay, great. Catherine.
Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine. I'm a clinical research coordinator for the Wisdom Study, and I love blue as well.
Okay. Samra.
Hi, everyone. My name is Samra Rauf. I'm also a clinical research coordinator for the Wisdom Study. Welcome, everyone.
And your favorite color is?
Oh, purple, of course.
Wow, lots of purples. Wisdom, the color purple. Wisdom is the color purple. Okay, yes. Narfunda.
Hi, my name is Narfunda Ross. I am from Lynette, Alabama, and my favorite color is purple. And I am a co-founder of a nonprofit breast cancer organization here entitled Team Whip.
Great. Stephanie.
Hey there, I'm Steph Goodman. I'm with the Wisdom Study, UCSF, and my favorite color is that teal that's actually on the screen right now.
Okay, Wilma.
Good afternoon. I'm Wilma Batiste. I'm the chair of the UCSF Abundant Life Health Ministry Network, and my favorite color is blue.
All right, Kathleen. Kathleen Boris.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Oh, good. I'm a retired teacher, and I've never participated in a community forum, so I'm interested to see what the community forum is. I'm just a participant right now, and I'm from Sacramento.
Great. Well, welcome. Alexi.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, sorry, driving, multitasking. I am Alexi Child. I am an OB-GYN PA in Chicago, and I am here to learn hopefully for my patients, as well as I was also a CAP study participant out here at University of Chicago, and that's how I got set up with Wisdom. So lots of awesome connections, and I have a strong vote for the purple group today.
Okay. I think there's a common theme about people who are interested in wisdom. Diane.
Hi, Diane Hiditsia in San Francisco. I am an advocate on the wisdom study, and my favorite color has always been purple, even before wisdom.
Okay, Morgan.
Hi, I'm Morgan Mitchell. I'm here in Houston, Texas. My favorite color is, in fact, purple.
All right, Jen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen James. I'm a sociologist at UCSF, and I will say my favorite color is blue.
Okay, Lori.
Hello, I'm Laurie Long. I work with Dr. Rhodes in the Office of Community Engagement at the Cancer Center here at UCSF. And my favorite color is pink.
Okay, we're getting some diversity here. All right, Susan. Susan, can you turn your speaker on? You're on mute. All right, we'll go on to Linda while Susan's getting off mute. Linda.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, I work for the Cancer Center in Mountain View, California. And my favorite color is, I have many, but lately it's been peach. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, Susie.
Hi, my name is Susie Brain, and I'm a longtime wisdom advocate. And other than purple, I would go with green.
Okay. Paige.
Hello, everybody. I'm Paige. I'm working for the Wisdom Study, so I'm very excited for today. My favorite color I put in the chat is beige, but a runner-up is purple.
Yeah. Okay, Rashna.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rashna. I'm a coordinator on the Wisdom Study, and my favorite color is yellow.
Okay, Galen.
Hi, everyone. I'm an anthropologist at UCSF, and my favorite color is burgundy.
All right. Ellen.
I am Ellen from the Bay Area. I'm a study participant, and my favorite color is gray.
Great. Okay. Laura Carfang. Laura's still on mute. Russia. Well, Lauren, Russia, just jump in anytime. In the meantime, Dahlia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dahlia. I'm a equity on the Wisdom Leadership Board, and well, red and black are my two favorite colors. I have not been able to decide which one I like more.
Okay, and Santana.
Hi, my name is Inocencia Santana. I'm interested in the subject, particularly with racial equity, and my color is red.
Okay, Paulette.
Hi, I'm Paulette. I am with Parish Nursing.
I have also strong genetic background for cancer, and I have been written up by our local hospital because of the propensity of cancer that runs through my family. My favorite color is teal.
Okay. Doretha, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, that's correct. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Doretha Hurd, and I'm from Tuskegee, Alabama. I'm the co-founder of an organization called Making Means for Cancer Support. And my favorite color is blue, but our color for our organization is the same blue that you have here on the screen. And I'm really interested in finding out about the wisdom study. Thank you.
Thank you. Leandria.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Anderson Tober. I am a clinical research coordinator with the Wisdom Study. I'm located in Birmingham, Alabama, with the University of Alabama at Birmingham, also known as UAB.
Great. Thanks for joining. Denny.
Oh, I'm sorry. My favorite color is yellow.
Oh, great. Love that color. Denny. So if either, I don't know if Denny, you can't get your, anytime either one, Laura or anyone else wants to join in, jump in, go ahead. Well, thanks everybody so much for joining us in this discussion. And again, we are really interested in having a dialogue about where we are now, really understanding what's going on and trying to think about how to make the future better for everyone, actually. So go ahead, Allison. So I think a couple of the things that I think are actually really interesting, and one of the things that we have found out that there's, as we go along, often when we ask, if we find out things that we just would never have known if we didn't ask the question. So, one of the things about wisdom is that, we are trying to think about how we can use the tools that are available that help us, understand where someone's inherited an error in one of their genes that puts them at very high risk for breast cancer. And one of the really interesting things that we have found is that the majority of women in wisdom who actually have a known mutation actually don't have a first-degree relative with breast or ovarian cancer. And this can be for a number of reasons. It can come from a small family. People can be adopted. It can be that there are a lot of men in the family, and so there's not enough women to actually see what the mutations are, or just not as penetrant. That's just the way it is. But I think that really struck us as thinking, gosh, this is important information that we could actually know about everybody. And we just wanted to sort of, I think what's interesting about it is that when we think about people who have breast cancer and we think, well, how many people actually, how many of that's explained actually by family history or mutation, maybe that's part of the reason we don't actually know as much is because you can actually have a factor that's predisposing you to breast cancer that you don't even know about, and you don't really have a clue in your family. So we just wanted to, that's sort of one of the interesting things that I think we didn't realize or we didn't understand. Just because you don't have family history doesn't mean that you couldn't actually inherit a predisposition that's pretty significant for cancer. And so I think one of the reasons why this is important is, our screening recommendations are for women starting at 40. But what's interesting is if you happen to be really young, most women, most very young women really have high risk for aggressive cancers. But actually, it's not very common to get cancer when you're young. So it doesn't make sense to screen the whole population there. But again, if you happen to have one of those mutations, you would be at risk for one of those cancers. And just for an example, if you look at the percentage of triple negative cancers that are diagnosed in women in their 20s, you know, a quarter of these cancers, a quarter of the cancers are triple negative in very young women. And we know that about family history. I mean, if you have an inherited mutation, that you're actually at risk earlier. And, you know, as you get older, there are differences, you know, in the rates of these cancers over time. But in these very young women, this is something that if you happen to have an inherited mutation, you would be at risk for this. And I think it's a way of just thinking differently. Is this something we can know about? So as we kind of think about how to right size or think about going forward with recommendations, you know, going beyond this first stage of the wisdom study, is just thinking about, well, what's a piece of information that we could actually know about everybody, and think about that. And maybe that would actually help us find those that small group of women who really are at higher risk, so we could do something about it. And I wanted to just kind of put that out there for discussion. What do people, how do people, so how does that information sit with all of you? Is that surprising? Is that something different? I mean, it's true, you know, anyone can get a bad cancer at any age, but it is really true that you are more likely to get a bad cancer when you're younger. And I think it's actually really important to understand, of course, it underscores the fact that all breast cancers aren't the same. And again, that's another reason why when we think about screening and prevention, it's important to be thinking, okay, how do we take into account the fact that there's a bunch of different breast cancers? And, you know, how do we start putting the information into a place where we can start thinking about it differently? Thoughts?
Do we have any reason medically that is so? I mean, you know, why are there any answers from science?
Well, we do know for sure, like if you were to be, like if you were a BRCA1 carrier or BRCA2 or PALB2, one of these high, you know, aggressive cancers. So we know that if you're a BRCA1 mutation carrier, you're about 55 times more likely to get a triple negative breast cancer than the average person. Or than, you know, right? Because that's the kind of error that's made. And we also know that those cancers tend to arise in women of earlier age. So for those kinds of, in that situation, yes, that's, you know, again, what happens is, you know, as your cells are dividing, you know, you've got a proofreader asleep at the wheel. I saw Elad Ziv on here earlier. I don't know if he's still on. Yeah, Elad, you're on.
Yeah,
I didn't hear about your favorite color, by the way, but you know, you might, that's one of the things that, you know, why are young women more likely to get these aggressive cancers?
So if the question is why are young women getting more triple negative breast cancer, I don't think we know exactly, but we do think that the biology of triple negative breast cancer is different. They look more like a certain type of epithelial cell, a basal epithelial cell. And in general, I mean, there are even other things that kind of cause breast cancer in young women that tends to be sort of, for example, radiation increases the risk of breast cancer in young women, and also those tend to be basal. So we think that the risk for there's something about the biology of the basal cells is sort of makes them predisposed more earlier in life. But yeah, sort of still a mystery.
It is, yes, we're still certainly looking at it. And I think it is true that, there may be certain characteristics of people that put them at more risk for these cancers, even over time. Again, we know something about these cancers, right? We know that they grow more quickly. We know that, we should think about how to screen for them differently. And I've been pushing a lot on this since we started this study.
Yeah. There are other things, I think, so there are other things that predispose you to basal type breast cancer that we know from the genetic side. And so I'll just say my expertise is mostly in the genetic side, but there are common genetic variants, and some of those predispose you more to the basal type breast cancer. And people have been looking for those in all populations, and particularly, the other question that could arise from this graph that you see is sort of the fact that the Black women have higher rates of the basal or triple negative breast cancer throughout the whole lifespan. And that is not clearly understood yet, but there's some genetic variants that we know predispose all women to the triple negative or basal breast cancer more, that are not necessarily in BRCA1, that are more common, have more minor effects, but together add up to put some women at high risk. And some of those are a little bit more common in women of African descent. And so Black women have a little that higher risk, but we don't fully understand why that disparity that we see on this curve.
Yeah. And someone actually, I think Carol asked, if I understand correctly, doesn't cancer involve cells that are growing quickly? And whether growth hormone might be adding to the ability of these cells to grow. So it's really an interesting thing that cancers come in different types, right? You can have these kind of aggressive types that grow more quickly. You can have slower growing cancers. These are in fact the ones where screening actually really makes a difference because they can catch them earlier than they would otherwise. Where some of the faster growing cancers are growing so fast, sometimes the way unless you're screening more often, you might miss them. And there are some cancers that grow so slowly, they probably aren't going to actually come to much harm. So I think sometimes it's hard for people to get their arms around the idea that cancer isn't one disease, it's actually a number of diseases. And we've really learned a ton about this, and we have really adjusted our treatments and made a lot of progress by really trying to understand, what treatments work. So for example, in some of these hormone negative tumors, we found that they're driven by, immune, they're the immune system, and we can actually treat with immune targeted drugs and really dramatically improve the outcomes. But that should also give us an idea for thinking about prevention if we could figure out who is at risk for those kinds of cancers. So I think that's super important. I wanted to bring up, another issue, and I think this relates a little bit to the, the issue that we talked about last time, which is that we know that African-American women have a higher chance of dying of breast cancer than white women. And we know that the leading cause of cancer death for Latino or Hispanic women is breast cancer. And it is the most commonly diagnosed cancer among Asian American women. So it's clearly an issue. I think all of us were always assuming that one of the reasons why African-American women had a higher risk than their white counterparts was because of this triple negative disease. But it may actually be something different. It may be from, faster growing hormone positive cancers. And this is something that my colleague, Dr. Olopade, has been working on, and actually something we've also identified. And so it's so important to ask these questions and not assume that we know the answer, because what we want to do is try and find out, who's at risk for these different kinds of cancers. Make sure that we really understand what treatments will work best, and make sure that people have access to the right treatments. So it's a really big issue. That's, we talked about last time is if, this has been a big issue in the Jewish community as well, because there's a higher incidence of BRCA1 and BRCA2, but really it's only in 1 or 2% of the population. So the question was, should we screen everybody, and should we screen everybody early? I would always say, no, I think better to find out who's got the mutations and screen them. So then this question really comes back out about, that was the issue that we talked about last time, which is, should all African-American women be screened more frequently and earlier? Or really, would it be better to try and do a better job of trying to find out who's at risk for these different cancers, and make sure that we're doing a better job for them, for the people who really are at risk. Thoughts from people. So that's sort of the science behind, trying to understand, can we get to, are we ready to start to say, can we do a better job at understanding some of the people at risk? Like, for example, yeah.
I think these first 3 slides really kind of capture what the problem is. First of all, family history is not the end all be all to tell you if you're at risk. There's a different distribution of breast cancer by age, and then we've got disparities, right? We've got different incidents, different rates of mortality by within racial and ethnic groups. And I think that really highlights, I think, where you started, which is breast cancer is not just one disease. And what that means is whatever screening or intervention we're going to do to try to improve outcomes cannot be a one-size-fits-all approach, because you just showed 3, very different categories of demographic factors that may imply what people's risk is. And so I think that's, that kind of helps us lead into thinking about, like, why do we need the wisdom study, right? One size clearly doesn't fit all, just based on what we looked at just in 3 slides of data.
Right. And I think another question is, and you brought this up yesterday, Kim, is that even if we were really sure that we knew something about race, how do we define race? And a lot, I know you've looked at this from just looking at the genetics, that people, that increasingly when you look at studies, I'm doing another study for patients who are really ill with COVID, and out of New York, 45% of their population is mixed races, more than one race. So which race do you use? Or is there really a better way to really understand? Is it really about, it's not really about race, it's about what the risks are that are associated with certain gene patterns, perhaps. And it's not, it's a different issue maybe, about how we find that. So I think that's another complicating factor, right?
Well, if I could add, as you talk through the various gene patterns, you can also tie those gene patterns to groups of people who socially, right, the idea of, race is a social construct, right? So then you can tie that genetic factor to that. So that's you're linking it, right? You're using it, not race as we look at social construct, but in the way that you just mentioned, and just linking it to that.
Exactly. That it's that what we want to do is try and get to truth more about, well, so what is putting people at risk? How do we identify those factors? And then how do we do more for those who have higher risk? And, not over treat or over diagnose or, over screen people who really have a much lower risk. And, I think we're sort of at a time where we have many more resources at our disposal to start to understand risk better. And I think the issue is then how do we get to figuring out how to apply that in the population? That's the challenge. But as Kim was saying, again, there are better ways to find out about your genetic predisposition than asking about family history. And there may even be better ways to find out about race that's linked to risk than asking what your race is, right? That's what, all these Ancestry.com and all these places have kind of showed us. It, surprise, there's all kinds of things that you didn't know about. And really, at the end of the day, it should be about, well, who's got, if we're looking at, are these things that we can know? Are there things that we can discover that tell us more about somebody's predisposition to breast cancer that's really just from one of these spit tests? And that we should dispense with some of the old questions and the old ways we've asked about it and move to a more precise or better way that helps us continue to learn. What do people think about that?
I think Jen had a great comment in the chat. I don't know if she is able to.
Jen, can you speak?
Yes. Sorry, I have sick kiddos at home, so you may hear cartoons in the background. But yeah, I think I was noting that I think for a long time we have been very reductionist and unscientific about race, and I think that's led to us having really not good data. And I think the point we're at now is I think we're realizing all the things race doesn't capture accurately. And I'm hoping that moving forward, we're making sure we're collecting data in such a way that we are able to ascertain. We think this, this health disparity is because of racism. We think this has to do with ancestry. We're asking the right questions, when we're talking to somebody to make sure we're explaining to patients and participants about why we need certain information to help them figure out the best way to answer, because so many people's racial identity is so complicated. But I think it leads to questions about what should we do today? What should we do now until we're at that point? So hopefully in 5 or 10 years, we can get to having better data. How should we consider the ways to act, the best way to act now, the best way to screen now, when we know the disparities exist and we don't know why? And I think that's what makes it so tough.
Well, I wanted to bring up something that I think is super interesting. I want to introduce everybody to Kim Badal, who is, come on back over here, who's just joined our group. She's here from Trinidad. And she showed me some really interesting data about breast cancer and the rates of inherited mutations in the Caribbean. And you sort of think, oh, we can say there could be mixed races and you don't know, but in the Caribbean, you think, oh, that's a region of the country where things ought to be pretty similar. But in fact, they're not, right?
Yes, no. So from the breast cancer populations in the Caribbean, we see there's been research published out of Moffitt Center in Miami that shows that there's variation in terms of the penetrance of high-risk mutations depending on the island, right? So it goes from about 20% of patients diagnosed with breast cancer in Bahamas have a deleterious mutation, right? In either BRCA1, BRCA2, PALB2, et cetera, to as low as 2%, 2 to 4% in Jamaica. So there's a huge range there. And well, that group is further studying why that is, but in the Caribbean specifically, there's so much racial and ethnic differences and a lot of mixing, right? So while you may think we have a homogeneous population, we definitely do not. And so, you know, it's another interesting cohort to be able to study, and also demonstrates that, you know, these things vary very, you know, they vary a lot between countries, between different populations of African ancestry. I think that is what's important here.
Right. And, you know, I think this is just one more illustration of why it's just important to get to the data itself. You know, and I think that, you know, this is one of the things that I look at this data from Wisdom, and I think to myself, well, if someone inherited a mutation, the time they need to know about it so that we can do a better job of screening is probably when they're 30. And the interesting thing is that that test that we use as part of the Wisdom study, which is, you know, part of the question we're asking is, can we do a better job of, you know, tailoring screening by knowing, you know, really knowing for sure, at least, you know, at least taking what we know and learning it and making sure everyone has access to it. And in fact, it doesn't really matter if you do that test when someone's 40 or 50 or 35 or 30. And in fact, you know, if really we're not getting the clue through family history, or maybe somebody doesn't know it, or it's through their father's side or something else, maybe the way we should be thinking about that is, okay, when you turn 30, this is a test you should, you know, find out if there's, at least know about the 1% to 2% of people at really high risk. These are all kinds of ideas to be thinking about. You know, how do we make it better? What should be, you know, how do we take what we know and have it make sense? So Dahlia, I see that, so Dahlia wrote here that the issue still remains that we aren't testing women and men in communities of color in order to have better data. Okay, that is a great comment. And, you know, I think that that would be an amazing thing to do. And I think that one of the things that I want, that I hope that in these studies that we welcome everyone to participate, and we do a good job of making sure people know about it so that we don't miss testing populations where we can learn more. I think that's one of the concerns, right, is that we don't want to miss learning. And we want to make sure that we are inclusive to everyone, because I think this information will help everyone. You could have, you know, you could be 2% Bahamian and not know about it, and have the 2% that you've inherited that has the mutation, the high mutation rate. So you don't know. So I think this is one of the amazing things. I don't know, Alad, you can say this, but you know, when these genes got cloned and sequenced back in 1996 and 1997, it was like, oh my gosh, and we could hardly use it. And it was this giant deal and expensive, and how would we use it? And to something now that's so simple, you can spit in a tube and out comes all this amazing information. You know, it's been an amazing transition to be able to get there, right? And it seems like, gosh, we're in a position we should be able to use it. What do you think, Alad?
No, I think that's exactly right. And actually, I've been looking for, we mentioned our colleague, Dr. Alapati earlier, and she's got, I think, several papers, and I'm just trying to find them as I speak. I'll find them in a little bit, looking particularly at African-American women with young onset breast cancer, because it is such a big problem. And she has identified, I think, a rate of what BRCA1, BRCA2 mutations
7%.
are. Sorry?
About 7%, I think.
Okay, right. And so I think that anyway, there is some data. I think the more data we have and the more samples we collect for future research will be unequivocally helpful. I was recently at the National Cancer Institute is sort of running a big genetic study, and they're trying to improve minority participation in the study, and they're doing a reasonable job, but they need to do better. Everybody needs to do better in this. So there's no doubt that having the numbers go up will be helpful. Just to put things in perspective, many of the big data sets that have been published in European ancestry women, and some of them come from Europe, so they're going to be by necessity, they're going to be European ancestry. But the sample sizes for a lot of these genetic studies have gone into the tens of thousands, and now some of them are into the 100,000 cases in order to really identify new genes and new genetic variants. And so, there's sort of a long way to go with other populations, and increasing participation is the way to do that.
Yeah, for sure. I see, Andrea, you have your hand up.
Yes. So I was just looking at the comments and I was about to type it in, but it's a lot. Something that I've noticed, just kind of being out in the communities, is that not only just like the aspect of having testing available to people like in communities of color, there's an aspect of mistrust that's still there in communities. I attended Tuskegee University, so of course, most people from Alabama, as well as a lot of people nowadays, they hear about the mistrust in communities. And I've found that I've had a lot of people who don't trust the aspect of genetic testing. So I feel like these conversations and just having people like everyone on this call, like going out in the communities and expressing to people the importance of genetic testing is a way to get over one of those hurdles. Because even if it's available, it doesn't really matter if people don't trust what's being done in the first place.
So, Leandria, I think that's such a great comment. And Daya, I think, this comment, one of the reasons why we knew more about the mutations that were common in Jewish women is because they were more willing to get tested at the beginning. So we just knew a lot more about that population. But there's an English mutation, there is a mutation that's common in Spain. And actually, one of the things that's really interesting, there's a mutation that's common in Mexico. And you know what that is? It actually happens to be a shared mutation with Jewish people, because in the Inquisition, people got, left Spain and went to Latin America or went to Mexico. So there's big populations of people who were raised Catholic, but if you look back, the study of population genetics is really about the migration of population. So I think there's a lot of things that people don't understand about genetics, and it's not some big scary thing. It's about really understanding what's there. Like everybody inherits good things and predispositions to one things and not to others. But if you have something that knowing about it could help you screen better or more frequently. And, I think it's not very far in the future that if you knew you had these mutations, there could be some, prevention things that we could do, because we're getting closer and closer to learning how to treat these tumors, with, a class of drugs called PARP inhibitors, that might actually work as preventives. So I think this is so important to understand, and more, and make sure that we really do understand those people at high risk for cancer, because they are at risk when they are younger. And those are the people that screening traditionally misses. Another person put in the chat that, well, what about these genetic variants, are like, and the majority of people don't have one of those. But a lot more people have small changes in what they inherit that can contribute to risk a lot.
Yeah, I just wanted to address, I think an earlier comment by somebody, I think it was Dahlia, who said she had a mutation in a gene and she wasn't about the question about Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry. So so this is a clarification, is that the gene BRCA1 and BRCA2, you can think of it as sort of a string of letters, like a sentence in your DNA. And any letter in that sentence, if it's changed, could basically cause a misspelling and could cause basically a bad outcome, a risk for cancer. And there are certain changes in the spelling that are common in one population. So there are 2 in BRCA1 and 1 in BRCA2 that are common in Ashkenazi Jews. But there are, as I think, Laura, you said this earlier, there can be different letter changes in different populations, and any of them can be risk factors. So there are risk factors and there are genetic mutations in any population that you go into. And in Ashkenazi Jews, they happen to be a little bit more common. So that's kind of why we know about them. And also because Laura said they're getting tested earlier, we know about them. But any woman from any ancestry, anywhere in the world, can carry a BRCA1, BRCA2 mutation. And so it is important to get tested. Many of those women do have a strong family history. And of course, if you have a strong family history, you should be tested. But the thing that we said earlier is not everyone with those mutation has a strong family history. So that is part of what wisdom is sort of wrestling with, is trying to kind of find those people who don't even know about it because they don't have a family history.
Right. And so I think, what we found is, of course, one size definitely doesn't fit all. I think as Kim said at the beginning, breast cancer is not one disease. The risk factors everybody has is not the same. We don't just put one bra out there and say, everyone go buy the same bra, right? That makes no sense, right? So obviously screening and prevention should be different too, right? So at least we think one solution is to think about, how do you take everything we know today about risk assessment and keep pushing and adding as you learn more, and then use that information to understand people's risk and think differently about screening and prevention. And, this idea that everyone should just start screening at 40, I think we can do better than that. So that's what we hope to be able to show with the wisdom study. And in particular, one of the things that we're really focused on is, how do we not just screen for cancer, but say who's really at risk for those aggressive or, those cancers that show up between screens? Where has screening fallen short and where can we do better? So the wisdom study is comparing what has been considered the gold standard or the standard of care, where we used age is your primary risk factor. And when you turn 40, everyone's supposed to go get a mammogram. Unless you've got a strong family history, which we've just learned about is often not good enough. And now, so what we can add in the personalized screening arm is we look at age and family history, whether or not you've inherited one of these mutations, or maybe you've inherited one of the genes that by itself isn't caught that much at risk, but when you combine it with a bunch of others, it is either raising your risk or lowering your risk. And understanding which of those genes can be associated, maybe it doesn't matter what your declared race is, but it's things that we know go together. Those are things that we can look at. And breast density, whether you've had a breast biopsy and how old you were when you started your periods, all of that together is the idea that we can personalize a screening strategy and a prevention strategy for you based on risk. We're starting, it's Wisdom 1.0. We are hoping, that in everything we learn, we just keep pouring back in and keeping to make it better. And that's the trial, is that that we're testing one versus the other. And importantly, in the trial is if people feel very strongly they want one versus the other, instead of being assigned by chance, you can actually pick which group you want to be in. And so if you want to learn
Laura?
more, yeah, Jen.
I was just going to ask, I mean, you were just noting about race ethnicity, and we've been talking about the different, the complexity of the way we use it. And I think the example of the Caribbean and how complicated it is. And I'm just curious if you could talk about what, if any, plans Wisdom has to sort of start trying to collect better data on race and ethnicity, or to challenge our sort of biologicalization of race that's been so common in medicine. How can we advance the way we're thinking about this?
Well, great question for Alad, since we have big plans for that, right? So we collect what people think they are, but we also have the ability to look based on the genes.
Right, right. So okay, I mean, I think that we should try and uncouple race and genetic ancestry as much as we can. Genetic ancestry, we can measure genetically. It correlates with race to some degree, but there are a lot of other aspects of race and ethnicity that are not captured by the genetics. And so our plan, just to kind of address that question directly, is that we will, we are in the process of transitioning to a different genetic test, so we can actually inform ourselves about the ancestry of that the women who join Wisdom have, so that we are no longer really relying on their self-described race for the genetic part. We still are going to collect the race and ethnicity because we think it's important for other reasons. And actually, I'm going to actually maybe punt that over back to you, Jen, and others, I think, maybe on the call. Or, I mean, I think there are a lot of other aspects of race and ethnicity that are, and not out of my area of expertise, that are really important, having to do with access to care, with delivery of care and things like that, that are actually, important for us to continue to measure.
That might be a great kind of focus topic for one of our next community forums, if we want to spend a bit more time going into that, just as a suggestion. I know we're coming up on the hour. We're almost done. Just to give a little more information about Wisdom, but also just to note, I did put a link to an evaluation in the chat. If you do have to hop off, or if you can multitask and stay on, please do click that link and let us know what you thought of this forum, of the topic, what topics you may want to hear about for future forums. We took all of the feedback from the last evaluation and kind of put it all together to look to see what we should be planning for this one. I know there was a lot of interest in continuing this discussion around screening based on age or on race. So this is an ongoing discussion, and continue it as it's definitely not one that we can solve in one discussion or even altogether. But please do fill out that evaluation. We want to hear from you. And if you can stay on, we would love to tell you a little bit more about the Wisdom study as you're doing your evaluation.
Yeah, we wanted to just make sure that everybody knew, some people are already on the study, or some people have heard a little bit about it, but we've tried to make it so that anyone can join. And it doesn't matter where you get your care. All you have to do, I mean, it's done online. You go to wisdomstudy.org. And, we try and explain how the trial is run, where you can either be assigned by chance. If you're not sure which is the right one, just that's part of what we're learning. You have a long lifetime of screening. Most women spend 35 years screening. We like to say spend the next 5 years with us and help us change the way we do things going forward. If you're in the personalized arm, we'll send you a little spit kit. If you've had a mammogram, we want to find out about you. We just need to get your report. That's the only piece of information we need from your medical record. We have a little video that shows you how you can do that. And we really try hard to, in addition to giving you a screening assignment, and you just have to fill out a survey once a year and tell us what's happening. We hope that you'll follow the recommendations that we have and share it with your physicians. We're happy to talk to your physicians about why that is. But we also have tried to put a lot of information in about the trial, and just information also about some of the topics that everyone's interested in that we have on the website. And we'd love your feedback on that, if there are other things that you think would be on there. And, Dahlia, I think that we're interested in finding out, how we can make sure that everybody is included. And so that we don't have the situation that you talked about in the chat where groups of people have been excluded. But it's very interesting that a lot of what we know more about white women because more white women have been in trials. We don't want that to happen in this trial. We want to make sure that everybody's included across the board so that so what we learn will reflect what the community needs. So we're actually happy to answer any questions. If you haven't joined the study and you haven't been diagnosed with breast cancer and you want to join the study, that would be great. If you're interested in learning more and want to be an ambassador to help us, you can be train the trainers or just get information or get the word out there so that people feel comfortable helping to generate the information we need to do a better job for everybody. That's the goal, right? We want to make screening better for everyone, and understand more about risk. And the more diverse the group that joins, the better our information is, the more we can tailor and do a good job.
Can I just make one point, because I'm watching this conversation between Paulette and Elad, and one of the things I wanted to point out for Paulette is, and you may already know because you may already be part of the study, but this is a long-term engagement with the study. So every year you're getting an update based on the information that you've contributed through the online surveys, et cetera, about what your breast cancer screening regimen should look like, or what we would recommend based on your risk and how your risk is changing over time. And that's not something a primary care doctor is really going to be tracking for you. A primary care doctor is just going to be making sure the same thing over and over, the one size fits all. And I think the difference here is not only is the study about following people over the long term and really understanding what happens with the changes in risk over time, but also in keeping this community engaged in this forum, so that what you're sharing with us through this dialogue is also informing how we understand risk and the experiences of everyday women. And really, primary care doctors are not networked enough with each other to carry this out. And they're not sort of watching you over the long term to try to make determinations to risk. So I think that's one key important difference about what's happening here with Wisdom and with the development of this community in dialogue around breast cancer.
Yeah, and Paulette, I know you asked, we have the technology, why aren't we just doing this? Well, we agree that we believe that this is information or tools that should get out of the research realm and be put into the realm where we can use the information to say, how to do it better. But, it's with any change. People are very used to just saying, well, you turn 40, you get your mammogram, that's good. You've done everything you could and can. We think that's probably not true. We think we can do better and we can do more. And this, the tools for assessing your genetic risk is just one of those pieces. And we think it's really important to bring in. But with any change, you have to work hard and you have to create the opportunity to generate the information and show people. Without that, there is no change. And, I look back, when I started my training way back when, people were doing Halsted radical mastectomies for breast cancer, pretty terrible. But, at the time, it was the best thing that people had. I mean, before Halsted started doing that, women were put in a closet and they'd shut the door and that was it. So I think we don't think about things that how hard it is to make those changes. They're hard fought. The technology to be able to do this simply and easily really has been around for about 5 or 6 years. But now that it's there, we want to push it forward and we want to make sure that people have access to it and know about it. Because otherwise, Dahlia's right. There'll be groups of people where we haven't, included them or haven't you know, not intentionally. So that's why we're reaching out to you to find out, you know, how we can do a better job of talking about it and making sure people are aware of the opportunity to participate so we can, you know, generate the information that will allow us to do a better job for everyone and make it more equitable and more effective.
Sarah, did you have your hand up? Sarah Horton.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Allison.
Oh, welcome.
Hi, thank you. This is my first meeting and oh my God, so much good information and exciting information. And the reason I put my hand up is I wanted to make a comment. I'm a medical oncologist, so thank you for letting me be a part of this. But with one of the things that's exciting, like you're saying, Laura, is capturing this information now, all of this genetic information. And I think that communities of color do miss out. Of course, we all know not as involved in clinical trials, but if we can get as much information as possible when someone does enroll, meaning, you know, broad genetic analysis, I think that that can be used in the future. But one of the things I know Paulette mentioned was, you know, why can't we start gathering this? And one area that is always a little bit of a concern to me is the genetic counselor involvement. Because once you get this genetic information, we don't know a lot about what it means in the future to you. And some things we do, like BRCA. And it's always concerning, not concerning, but always thinking about how best to do this. I mean, in Wisdom, is there an educational component? Yes. Okay, because that's all.
So, well, I think actually there's two things that I think are important. And one of the reasons why I think primary care physicians have had trouble just taking these new screening models and doing it because they don't have the time and they don't have the knowledge. So what we have done is we've created sort of breast health specialists to really help reach out and do counseling for anyone who's at high risk. So if someone has one of these inherited mutations, our genetic counselors reach out wherever those people are. And even if you don't have a genetic mutation, but you're in that hot upper 2 to 3% of women at high risk, or even up to 5%, we actually have tools to help teach people about information about reducing your risk and having a consultation and having that information. So these are the kinds of things that have to be part. You can't just do a trial and just throw the information out there. You actually have to use it and actually have the infrastructure to make sure that people have the access to the information and education. And, you know, one of the things we're also finding in the trial that it's important, even if we reach out and provide that education, that it's important for us also to have a way to get that information back to that person's primary care physician, and that the physicians also have a chance to be able to reach out to us.
Exactly.
So it's a lot to do. It's a lot to change, right?
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments? I know we're past the hour. Thank you all for staying on. Feel free to speak up or put your hand up or question in the chat. And again, if you do have to leave, the evaluation link is also in the chat. We would love to hear from you and can learn from what you thought of today's session. And hopefully you'll join us for next month, which is on February 28th, the last Monday of the month. And we'll continue with that cadence moving forward, the last Monday of every month. Any other questions?
And let us know what you want to hear about next.
Great. We don't see any.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for spending now an hour and 15 minutes with us almost. Anyway, so thanks for joining us, and we're excited to partner with you to really continue to make the study be the best that it can be and as inclusive as it can be, to make sure we move the field forward.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening, and we hope to see you next month. Take care.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.